All right, government students, this is your 2.5 virtual notes. This is going to be on amending the U.S. Constitution. How do we do that, and why have we amended it? In your copy of the Constitution, you might want to highlight Article 5 and kind of make a note that that is about amending the Constitution. That lays out the process for amending it. It's a two-step process, really. It has to be an amendment has to be proposed formally, and then it has to be ratified. Okay, and really, there's two things to remember with this. When it comes to the proposal side of things, it's going to take 2/3 support in order to be proposed. And then once it's been formally proposed, then it's going to take 3/4 of the states to get behind it. But there's two different ways in both the proposal side and in the ratification side that can happen, giving us a total of 4 different methods. So let's talk about those individually and kind of see how often they've been used. Method number 1 is where the amendment is proposed by 2/3 of each House of Congress and then gets ratified by 3/4 of the state legislatures. This is the most common way to amend the Constitution. 26 out of 27 amendments have been gone this route. And that's because it's the easiest, it's the most efficient. It takes a lot of time to call a convention, either at the state level and especially at the national level. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of effort. It's a lot easier to use the structures and the systems that we already have in place, national legislature, state legislature, to do this. Okay? Which is why 26 out of 27 amendments have been made this way. Method number 2 is where the amendment's still proposed by Congress, 2/3 of each House of Congress votes on it, and then it gets ratified instead of by state legislatures by 3/4 of the states through state conventions. Okay? The 21st Amendment, which repeals prohibition, is the one that went this particular way. And in class, we're going to be working through a little memory aid trick to help you remember all 27 amendments, so you can kind of just look at the number and be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that particular amendment does. Method number 3, this is where it gets proposed at a national convention and called for by 2/3 of the states and then gets ratified by 3/4 of the state legislatures. This one is yet to happen because we actually haven't had a national convention since the Constitutional Convention. We just have not had either the need or just the desire to be able to call a national convention for that for issue yet. There's been some talk about it here and there about trying to go around Congress. Nothing's really come up from it yet, though, on that. Method number 4, this is how the Constitution was adopted, where you call for a national convention by 2/3 of the states and then ratify it through state conventions by 3/4 of the states. And again, this was how the Constitution itself was adopted. So why do we amend the Constitution? These are some lists of a number of failed constitutional amendments, right? Outlawing dueling, renaming the United States to simply America, limiting, regulating, and prohibiting the labor of persons under age 18, requiring a balanced budget, making English the official language, forbidding the denial of rights based on gender, prohibiting the desecration of the American flag through things like flag burning, and prohibiting same-sex marriage. These have been talked about, and some of these have even been formally proposed and sent to the states, but none of them have yet been ratified. Well, why? Okay, like with our first one here, outlawing dueling, there's certain things, okay, that maybe dueling is illegal, okay, and just because it's failed, I want to make sure I'm clear on that. That doesn't mean it's still allowed and practiced, right? It is illegal in all 50 states. You can't do it. But does just making something illegal, does that make it rise to the level of being a part of our Constitution? Okay, and that's a really, really important question to ask when we're talking about the Constitution, because this isn't just a law. This isn't just something that we're trying to do. Like when we talk about adding to our Constitution, that's a part of like adding to the American ethos. That is a part of like something that is so core about being American. Or maybe there's such a fundamental flaw in an element of the Constitution that it needs to be corrected so that our country can continue to function as the world changes around it. Okay, those are the types of things that should be in a Constitution. If it's a changing the machinery of government, or it's something that is just fundamental towards being American. Some of you might argue some of the things on this are. The states have said otherwise so far. Okay, when it comes to that. So There have been over 10,000 different amendments that have been talked about. Only 33, though, have actually been sent to the states that proposed. Of those 33, again, we have 27 that have been officially ratified. I have a little asterisk here because that Equal Rights Amendment for the sexes down here, proposed in the early 70s, technically, that one has been ratified. A couple years ago, Virginia became the last necessary state to ratify that particular amendment. However, there is a little clause at the start of that particular constitutional amendment that said there was a certain time frame in which that amendment could be ratified, and that time frame had expired by the time Virginia actually ratified it. So therefore, it doesn't become our 28th Amendment. Instead, it's just kind of a failed constitutional amendment. It could be interesting to see if maybe somebody takes that up with the Supreme Court, but they would have to have some sort of standing in order to do that, and I'm not quite sure how that would work. So I guess we're kind of just left with this situation as it is. But you can see like a number of failed constitutional amendments here. This one right here is a part of the Bill of Rights. Okay, so we have our first 10 that were a part of that deal between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. Okay, plus this one right here, the number of constituents per representative. That one technically is still active, I believe, and could be ratified if the states desired. Haven't seen a lot of movement on it, though. The 27th Amendment with congressional salaries, that was also proposed at the same time. That's what this long kind of dark blue line shows, is how long that amendment was in the ratification process. Okay? That one gets ratified in the early 90s and was proposed all the way back in 1789. So like you have a group of them right here that are really important as a part of that deal, and then it kind of breaks for a little bit. Then you get the 11 and 12 that come up in the early part of our history, dealing with a couple of issues here. This kind of changes the way, especially the president, vice president works in elections. Really, really important change to our Constitution there, as you have political parties having a lot more influence. Then you get another break. Okay, you have a couple included here, a ban on aristocratic titles. We never really developed those, but in our early history, that was something that would be worried about. Here you have, leading up to the issue of Civil War and the issue of slavery, here you have a ban on anti-slavery laws that gets enough support in the South and a couple of the northern states where apparently it gets proposed, but it doesn't go anywhere. And then after the Civil War, you get a number of constitutional amendments that do pass, dealing with the issue of slavery and protecting the rights of African Americans in terms of citizenship and based on the ability to vote. Then you get another break and you start to get another kind of a batch of constitutional amendments, little break, batch of constitutional amendments, and so on and so forth. And again, it's been a while since we've had a constitutional amendment. Does that mean we're up for another one potentially? And again, what would that actually look like? Well, these are some of the different categories in which the Constitution has amended. And really, if you start to look at it, there are some themes of things that keep coming up and over again. And two of the really important ones are those that deny power to the government, that limit the power of government in some way, and central idea of our Constitution. That's really what we've been looking at with like separation of powers, checks and balances, the whole idea of federalism. All of those are denying power to the government in some way and limiting the power of government. And also an important part is protecting the rights of individuals. Okay, many of the freedoms that we embrace as Americans and we enjoy, those are enshrined in our Constitution and have essentially become a central part of just our American ethos and the American character. And really like the ability to amend the Constitution, the forethought of our founding fathers to say, let's include a way that we can change this, is really what's allowed it to endure for over 200 years. When you look at a lot of other countries and you see failed constitutions, some countries, constitution after constitution after constitution that come up failing. How is it that ours has been able to endure so long? Part of it is the ability to amend it, to change it, to adapt, because life changes, right? Life back at the founding of our country, very radically different than it is now. And the ability to amend it allows our country to adapt as the world changes around it. Okay? That is everything for the virtual notes. Be ready to come up with some ideas as to how to remember all of them, all 27 amendments using the ABCs. That's what we're going to be working on in class, and I will see you then.